So we're going to go ahead and get started. Missing my VP, so you're just going to have to listen to me all day. Sorry. So we got a busy meeting, so let's get started. So we have announcements. So first things first, this weekend our workshop is Physics in Unity. Not nearly as boring as that sounds. I think we're planning on making a platformer, I think, in Unity, but actually, unlike the first workshop, we're going to be actually programming the parts that you didn't work with. So if you haven't checked out this last Saturday's workshop or the one before that, we upload them to YouTube. I'm sure this last one will be up soon, if not
1 or 2 days.
Yeah, and pretty quick here. So I would follow along with those and make sure you're caught up if you're going to come to this one. Otherwise, you'll probably be a little bit lost, but I'm sure you could manage. And that'll be led by Sam, the vice president, who's not here today, and that will be at the usual time, 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturday in Carver 205. Second thing, as always, we will have a time at the beginning of the meeting that if you have a concept or a game to show or an idea that you have, you just need to contact one of the exec members beforehand through Discord or email or whatever, and we will give you a short time slot that you can show it off and, you know, see if people are interested in the meeting to collaborate with you in the future and whatnot. So. Third, last year's t-shirts are here. I lied, I forgot to grab them. They're at an ass-off though, so if you want to grab them, tell me after the meeting and I'll run over and I'll grab them and bring them here. So they are the red shirts. I don't have them on me, so it's kind of a bad representation. But they look pretty cool and they're only $5. No guarantee you get your size because these are the leftover t-shirts from last year. So I think we are out of mediums if you want a medium shirt, but you can grab a large, or I think we've got plenty of larges still. So another announcement, we have our chairs selected. So these are the chairs, and we did something a little bit different with the creative committee, but I'll go over that. So first of all, our outreach and fundraising chair is Elizabeth in the back. Hello. Hello. Yep. So our creative is Dominic, who I think is not here. Yeah, he's not here. He usually sits in the front. He's got a beard. I'm making sure I'm remembering that he has a beard. I just second guessed myself that he, oh man. Wears glasses, pretty vocal. Streaming chair is Henry over here in the front. He'll be the face on the Twitch stream a lot of the time. So yeah, you get to deal with him. And then our tech chair is Jamil at the camera. Basically going to continue doing what he's been doing the first few weeks as we were picking our chairs. And then we also decided that we wanted to make a creative committee, because in the past we've had the issue where our creative chair is great at, 3D modeling. And somebody says, hey, where can I go to get help on getting better at sketching? And our creative chair says, I don't know. I don't do that much. And then everything just kind of goes nowhere. So we're trying to branch out and have more people involved in the creative side of things. So we're making a committee so everyone can work on the posters for the club, the t-shirt design for this year, and can just be a general resource for people to use. So if you're interested in that, don't talk to me, or talk to me, either way, but message Dominic. He is probably easiest to grab on Discord. His name is Blazing Heart, if you've seen him on. That you can try and get onto the creative committee and be involved. The people on there are Alina, who I don't think is here, which means she can't get angry if I butcher her last name, Thyvara? Anybody know how that's pronounced? No? Okay, cool. Christina Marquez, which is not you. There was another. I'm lost. Never mind. I thought.
She's not here.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry about that. And then Madeline Lloyd, who I don't think I see either. So never mind. None of the creative committee's here. So they're all off the creative committee. They all lose their. No, they don't. So next, we have a job opportunity actually from one of the old presidents of the club, the one before me. technically not the one before me, the one two before me. Basically, he is working on a dating game that he worked on last year in Game Maker Studio, and he has run out of time to work on it, and he would like to contract someone in the club to finish the game. So if you're interested in that, come to this up here and sign up so that we can send you an email with more information. He has something he'd like me to read, which is pretty long, so I'm just going to get into it. Hey everyone, this is Zachary Kane. Kane, that's Kane by the way. It looks not like Kane, but it is. I'm the head booth babe in my own pseudo company called Low Tier Studio. I don't know what that means. At this point, many of you probably don't know exactly who I am, but just know that I used to be in a position just like you might be now, excited about video games and interested in making them. When I joined ISU GDC years ago, I hoped I would be given the opportunity to break into the industry and maybe even work in it. Unfortunately, that never came to pass. While it's too late for me, I want to give you guys the opportunities I wish I had. A year ago, I announced a game now known as Love Player, which I suppose I should write since I didn't write it up there. Written like that. Unfortunately, I won't be able to complete it myself due to my big boy job. However, since this was a game meant for the club in the first place, I decided that it shouldn't be left unfinished. And thus, it leads me to why I'm reaching out to you guys. That was a terrible sentence, Zach. You should be ashamed. Since most of you should already be in career fair mode, I figure now would be the perfect time to offer you guys a job opportunity. I'd like to hire one of you to finish developing Love Player. It blows that I'm not able to hire designers to help finish the project, but fear not, I have many plans for once Love Player is complete. I'm so fucking stoked, that's his words, not mine, that I get to offer this opportunity to you guys. You guys probably have a lot of questions, and I'll have answers for them over the next week, but for now, follow Jacob's lead. And as always, go forth, make games, and be awesome, everyone. And he wrote that like 3 minutes before right now, so he got it done right on time, so. If you're interested in that, again, after the meeting, come up here, sign up, and he is planning on holding interviews next week after the meeting. So after the meeting, you'll come in and with probably your resume, I guess, and he just wants to talk to you about, what you've done and why you're interested and all that. You do not need experience with Game Maker. He wanted me to make sure I said that he can get you up to speed and work with you. Game Maker's pretty easy to get used to. It's not a lot of coding, usually. I haven't used Game Maker too much, but does anyone use Game Maker that they can?
You can do anything without coding.
Sweet.
Depends on what mode you have. You can program whatever you want, so just program.
Yeah, I think I used it in high school for one class, and it was mostly just the drag and drop.
Yeah, so it'll probably be that for the most part, not too much coding, but it might be a bit, I don't know. Anyways, next up, hype. We have our GDC Fall 2018 Game Jam coming up. So this is the official announcement. It is Friday, October 26th at 6 p.m. to Sunday, October 28th at 6 p.m. It's 48 hours. We've talked about this before. You go in, you make a game from scratch over the course of the event. At the end, everybody shows their games. We have sort of a judgment session, and then people are given prizes based on, what they did. Reminder, prizes are not given based on how good the game is. It's based on how good the game is and how much experience you have. So if you're going in with, this is your first game being made, you have just as much a chance to win it as someone who's very experienced, just depending on what you do. So it's, don't feel like you're not going to win anything. As a reminder, you do have to pay dues to win prizes, but you can pay them there if you still haven't by then. You can bring a team already. You can make one at the start. A lot of people do that, or you can work alone. It's totally up to you. It is all weekend. You can win prizes, yes. You do not have to stay up all 48 hours. Everybody asks that. Please don't stay up all 48 hours. The last half of the game jam will be awful because you won't have any idea what you're doing because it'll be a fever dream because you haven't had any sleep. So please
Sounds like fun.
get some. I mean, to some people, sure, yes. But yeah, you are free to stay there the whole time if you don't want to leave. We just ask that you do some basic hygiene practices, like occasionally brushing your teeth or something, because after 48 hours, gamers don't smell very good. And then there are definitely rules, but I said no rules except for all the rules. Okay. So, today I wanted to talk about working in a team. So, I'm sure most of you will not be working on games completely alone for the rest of your life, because that's just unlikely. You'll only be able to get so far. You need to collaborate in some way. Even games made by one person or two people had other people helping out and helping test and working with them in some steps. You guys heard of Undertale? How it was basically just made by Toby Fox? There's plenty of other people that are still involved with the game that help test it, that help make art, that help do character design. So it's not just him. Even though it was mostly him, it wasn't just him. So most of the time, you won't run into a game that's only made by one person. I think there's some examples. Braid. I think Fez is too. That was pretty much made by one person, but
RimWorld?
that may have been made by one person.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Cave Story was just one person.
Probably. There's most of the time games are made by multiple people, so whatever. So first thing I wanted to go over is that there's usually two approaches to being in a team. The first is you make a team and then you design a game with that team. This is basically exactly what happens at game jams. You get into a group, you're given the theme, and then you guys work together and come up with a game idea based on that. The second idea is you make a game idea, you write something, you get your design doc maybe all filled out, and then you look for a team to complete it. This is usually with much bigger games where you have a plan set out and you just need to find the people that can do the work that you need to get done. So I'm going to talk about the first one first. And a really important part of the first one is to play to people's strengths. A lot of people don't do this when they go into a game jam, and their game and their teammates suffer because it doesn't work out as nicely as they want to. So the idea of playing to your strengths is make a game that works with your skills that the different team members have. If you have a 4-person team and you have 3 programmers and an artist, you probably don't want to make a visual novel, because the artist will be doing all of the artwork and the programmers will all be sitting around watching one of the programmers make a visual novel. It's not that hard to make a visual novel. You'll have a lot of people not busy and you'll have one person really busy. This was the case my sophomore year at the fall game jam. We had a team where I was the programmer and we had 3 people doing art, and they made a game that had a ton of really complex mechanics where it was 2D, but there was stuff in front and in back, and I had to figure out how to make someone climb a ladder, which was really difficult because I wasn't that good then. I mean, I'm still not good. Now, that's beside the point. My point is, we came up with an idea that did not really fit to our strengths. So the artists were sitting around occasionally throwing me a lamp or a picture on the wall or a character, and I was stuck trying to put everything in the game as quickly as I could, and it just didn't really work out well. So the idea of that is just work with what you have. Make a game that complements your skills. And no, that is not a misspell. Compliment, that is a different word than telling someone they look nice. I'm disappointed Nate wasn't here because I figured he'd call me out right away, because I usually harass Nate for his spelling. But so, like, for an example, like I have up here, if your artist is a really big pixel artist, I mean, I know it's kind of overdone at this point, but if they are, don't make a game with really complex 3D models. They will not be able to work on it well. They will be stuck basically working with something they haven't before, and it will not look as good, and they will not have as much fun, and yada yada. If they want to try something new, they're free to try something new. You know, people are allowed to try things new. That's fine and good. But for the most part, you should be playing to your strengths with that. And the same way with programmers, that if you have beginner programmers on your team, don't make something that's super mechanically heavy. Don't make Portal. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Past Jake. Good idea. Portal's probably going to be beyond your scope if you're a brand new beginner programmer. So, how many of you know what Cuphead is? I'm assuming about 100%? No? Well, Cuphead was yeah, sorry if I didn't pronounce it. You're right the first time. Cuphead. Yeah. Cuphead is a really, really, really impressive game art-wise that is a run and gun, bullet hell sort of thing. However, nobody really praises the mechanics of it much. In fact, people usually dislike it because it's really hard. But the art is absolutely gorgeous. So of the 19 developers working on Cuphead, how many do you think were artists and animators? Just throw it out there. Out of 19. Anybody? There are 19 possible answers. It's 14? Okay.
One.
It's not one. I'm going to go ahead and just say it's not one on that. But, I mean, that'd be impressive if one person managed to do that. Yeah.
16 artists?
16, okay.
1.5.
It's also not 1.5. It's not 17. It's not as high as that. You guys are, that's pretty high.
I thought I remembered you saying 17.
No, it's 12. The point is it's 12 of the 19 were artists and animators. So that's about 65%, I think. Something around there. The thing is, out of the remaining 7, only 3 or 4 were programmers. The rest were doing stuff like publishing and advertising and that kind of stuff. So almost everyone, the majority of the people working on the game were artists, and it shows. You can tell that they really played to their strengths because they made a game that was mechanically solid, but was artistically absolutely amazing. So that's the kind of game that you want to tackle. That's the kind of idea you want to go with. Something that the majority of your team can work with and that people can really excel in. So, now covering the second option. If you're coming in with a game idea and then you want to make a team that works with it, you need to look for people that basically are going to be able to work on your game well. Just like Zach trying to get someone to finish his game. So one of the big things is get your game out there. A lot of people sit on their idea for a long time and they talk to the occasional person and they wonder, man, my game's not really getting off its feet. Well, that's because you need to shove it in everyone's face all the time. That's how you get a game. That's how you get people to be interested in your game, is when people have heard of it. If people haven't heard of it, they're not going to want to work on it. So, you know, one of the ways you can do that is sharing stuff online. I know there is a game dev subreddit that a lot of people post on and throw around ideas and whatnot, that you could probably throw something out there and say, hey, is anyone interested in contributing art for this? I guarantee you'll get at least one person who says yes. They might not be a great artist, I don't know, but it will be someone who has heard of your game now. You can also put it on social media and whatnot. Just as a word of caution, if it's a game that you want to make, that you want to actually publish, don't put all of your information online because someone might steal it. If you haven't put a copyright on it, or is it a patent? Do you make a patent for a video game?
Just stick with copyright.
Copyright, trademark, something? I don't know, something. If you haven't put anything on it, someone might take your idea and then put something on it, and you might get screwed out of your idea if you do that. So be careful throwing out all of your, you probably don't want to upload your design doc, is my point, to somewhere on the web. But throwing around some ideas and getting some people interested in it will make some effect. You'll get some amount of people who have at least heard of it, who can talk to people or share it, or maybe even just get involved. Second thing is you can network. Networking is very important. It's basically talking to people and finding people in different places that you can work with or you can bounce ideas off of or whatever. So you can find people online, like I said. You can go to game dev conventions. I know there's plenty of those that you can go and talk with people and get ideas and get people to work on it. Or a really great place is this cool place I've found that's called ISU GDC. It's this club for people that want to work with other people that make games. Like it's like seemingly the greatest place for this, but you know, that's a good question. GDC actually stands for I'm low on originality. I was going to try and come up with something. It's Game Dev Club I'm talking about here. So, yeah, and then finally, you know, share your ideas at the meeting. We have that beginning time slot of the meeting for a reason. If you have a game idea that you want to share, come up and share it. Don't just sit on it. Get it out there so that people have at least heard of it. I know that I can think back to game ideas that never really went anywhere in the past, but just seemed really cool. That if someone came up and said, hey, I'm still working on this, anybody interested, that I might jump in and say, sure. I mean, I might not be able to offer too much, but I can jump in, I can help. So how many of you remember that snake game, that 3D snake game that the other guy showed at one of the meetings in the past? It's a decent number. You're people that have now heard of that game, that you can recall some of the details of that game. So get the information out there to try and find people to work on it. That's not in the right direction. So, outside of those two approaches, really important part of working in a team is coming up with a game plan. Working by yourself, coming up with a game plan is a good way to get motivated, to make sure you're actually keeping on track and finishing your game in a timely-ish manner. You're in college. How timely is it really going to be? But when you're working in a team, it's important to stay organized. It's not just for motivation, it's for actually keeping yourselves on track. So you definitely want to make a schedule. I'm not talking about a super complicated, very in-depth schedule where you put all of your tasks that you've done and you set up a Trello board or a Jira board or something. You don't necessarily have to go that far, but you should base it at least around milestones. So what I mean by that is we should have this feature done by this time. We should be done, we should stop adding new features by this day. Or in a game jam, we should stop adding new features by this time left, or something like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be complicated, you just need to have something that you can work towards. And then, yeah, so those were examples. So, yeah, you don't have to follow it perfectly, but it's just a good way to keep yourselves organized. Obviously, if you're halfway through implementing a new feature and you hit that time, you don't necessarily have to get rid of all the work leading up to that and remove the feature, but you should use it as a kind of a general timeline. So how many of you have seen a chart like this in one of your classes? Anybody? It's called a Gantt chart. Really useful for keeping on track. You don't need to do this. This is a lot of planning for this kind of stuff. This is giving yourselves time frames that you need to do everything. If you want to go this far in depth, go this far in depth. If you don't want to, please don't. It's a lot of work just planning it out, and especially for a game jam. If somebody makes one of this at a game jam, we'll probably take away points because this is good time you could have spent working on your game that you instead wrote this really complicated chart on. So don't do this. This is great as an example. So it's something simple and you're working towards your milestones. So at the game jam, you spend the first hour talking, communicating with each other, telling each other what you're good at. I don't know, doing trust exercises, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. But by 47 hours left, by 1 hour in, you need to start working on your plan. You need to get down to business and start putting down ideas. By 44 hours left, you need to stop planning, be done, be happy with your idea, and get to work. And so on. As 30 hours left, you start putting in artwork. You're no longer working with gray boxes. You need to start having something that you can put in that isn't just placeholder for your game. At 5 hours left, you need to stop doing new work, make sure all of your testing is good, make sure you fixed all of the problems that you've been running into, and then 1 hour left, you need to build it, make sure it runs correctly. That is a really important step that a lot of people miss, that 10 minutes before the deadline, they build it and realize that everything is not ready to be built, that nothing is in the right build settings and everything's messed up, and then they panic, and then they end up with just play it on the Unity editor in front of everybody. It's like, it's not that hard to build it. Make sure it's built correctly. Make sure that you can run it nicely, that you can just send it to somebody and they can use it. But my point is, it doesn't have to be as complicated as that. You can set up something that's a little bit simpler that you can work with. So, when you're working in a team, you got to communicate, because that's important. So we kind of went over this a little bit last week, but basically you want to make sure that nobody's getting shut down, that you're letting everybody speak, because if you shut someone up, they won't be inclined to actually share more ideas after that. So just do not do that. And then the other thing is, unused ideas give the team more focus. So this is pretty important. It's basically the idea that if you cut out an idea, you know what not to do, which is important in its own right. It helps you stay focused as to what you want to do. So if somebody in your group says, I think our platformer should be entirely underwater, you now know your entire platformer should be above water, because that's a bad idea. Don't do that. That gives you some direction, that okay, we're not going to make it a water game. Done. To the people that want to make a platform underwater, you're allowed to do that. Just, I won't be playing. And then finally, make sure everyone's following the game plan. Be honest. Don't be an asshole to people. Stuff that should make sense, but sometimes doesn't seem to get through. That was not the correct. No, that was the correct direction. The other thing is there's a bunch of different ways to communicate. So this is less about game jams, or at least the second one is less about game jams. But if you're in person, make sure you're always communicating. If you have 20 minutes at a game jam where nobody on the team is talking to each other, start talking to each other. Ask somebody, hey, can you test this? Or hey, can you bounce feedback on this? Does this feel good to play? Does this get something going? If you just sit there and you're not talking to each other and you're not communicating, you're not going to be working as a team. You're going to be multiple people working individually who are going to throw their things together at the end. So my point is, don't just sit there. You can go 20 minutes without that's also allowed, but general kind of a rule of thumb. Then if you're talking with people online, make sure to keep a consistent schedule. May say, okay, we're going to meet every second. We're going to talk every second Saturday for an hour and just go over what we've worked on. This is useful for if you found people online to work with, not necessarily here or in person. And that's important because once you miss one of those days, you're going to be inclined to start missing more of the days. I can almost guarantee that just about everybody in this room has dealt with that with classes, where you're going to a class every time, then you miss a day, and then you feel like, the next time, I should go because I missed it last time, but I might miss the next one. And then you start running into this habit of maybe, occasionally missing a few more classes than you should have. A lot of people do it. So my point is, the moment you start missing those times, you might be inclined to do that more in the future. So it's better to just keep a really consistent schedule and work with that the best you can. And then finally, it is important to actually hear people's voices. I can put as many exclamation points in a text as I want. I might not be excited at all. Actually, that's pretty much most of the time. I mean, when I type LOL, I'm usually like stone-faced, not happy at the time. So talk with people to actually get an idea of how they feel about something. Actually get a gauge on if they're excited for your game. If you're just sending messages to each other, you might not get a good idea of what they're feeling about. And there are ways to talk to people. If you have not found a way to talk with someone online, it's 2018. What are you doing? Figure something out. Use Skype if you have to. Which, whew, that's rough. Don't use, what? Oh, God. You know, get AOL going, you know, whatever you need. The point is, talk with people. So, you know, finally, it's really, really important to compromise when you're working in a team. Like I said, your idea is the greatest thing since sliced bread. You're convinced of that. You need this idea in your game. So is if you look to your right while you're in a group, so is that guy's idea. Next guy, so is that guy's idea. Everyone's idea is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Everyone's idea is great.
So does it mean sliced bread is not that great then?
Kinda. If there's so many things that are better than sliced bread, what's so great about this sliced bread? But everyone is interested in their own plan and their own idea. You need to find some sweet spot that makes as many people as possible happy. I know sometimes you get into a group where two people are just completely clashing and you can't really get both of them to agree on something, but the point is you're trying to get as many people as possible to be happy with the game. And the reason for that is because people work better, people are happier, and people are more motivated to work on games that they feel like they have some ownership of. If they have an idea in the game that they're responsible for, they will be happier to work on it. And to work on the game overall because they feel like they now have a part in it, that it's their game. If you shut down someone's ideas and they don't have any part in the game that's theirs, they're not going to be interested in working on it. I know I've seen it in a lot of game jam groups, in my own group sometimes, that you know, somebody kind of feels shafted and they feel like they didn't get their ideas in, and then they end up contributing the least amount of work, getting the least done. You know, you want to try and avoid that as best you can. That, you know. So, that is actually all I had for the meeting. Kind of just threw a bunch of stuff at you. Did anybody have anything that they wanted to bring up, I guess? How's everybody's day going? Kind of just yelled at you for like 30 minutes about a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, cool. I'm all right too. I'm doing pretty good. I think Sam's sick. That's a shame. Anyways, so reminders. We have our workshop this weekend, Physics and Unity. We'll be making a platformer. If you're interested in showing things at the beginning of the meeting, talk to us. Last year's t-shirts are going to be here for $5. If you're interested, is anyone interested in buying a t-shirt today of the old t-shirts? Cool, I don't need to run to add an ass off. Also, if you change your mind, that's totally fine. Again, there's that job opportunity with Zach. Zach is really excited to get working on this, so if you're interested, please come up to the front, write down your name. He'd love to talk to you. Even if you're not necessarily interested, it might be a good idea to put up your name just so you can get the details and see, you know, maybe your mind will change. I don't know. Then also we have the game jam this at the end of the month. Be there or be square. It's cool. It's a lot of fun. Win prizes, yada yada, the whole shebang. Yes.
Do you want me to talk about the sign up?
Yeah.
For the streaming?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so at this next workshop, or at least starting at this next workshop, we're going to have like this sign up sheet where you can potentially bring a game of your choosing on the console of your choosing to one of our streaming rooms. And basically when that happens, we'll just play your game, talk about what makes it good, talk about maybe what makes it bad.
Bad ones are fun.
Yeah, you can bring basically whatever game you want on whatever console you want. So on this sheet...
And if you don't have the console, we might. So
yeah, we might. So basically on the sheet, you're just going to write down like your name, your email so I can contact you, the game, and then whether or not you have a console that you can play that game on. And then just like a date and time that we could do it.
And you don't necessarily have to bring a game either. If you really don't have any ideas for what to play, we'll find something. Yeah. We'll dig something out of our own personal stuff, I guess. Yeah. I got games I can bring. Shame I sold Sonic 06. That'd be a fun one to play. What?
Why would you do that?
Because it's Sonic 06. What kind of a question is that?
I mean, it's so bad that you like need to hold on to it.
I do regret selling it, but I also sold my Xbox 360 with it, so I don't know. Is that backwards compatible?
You could probably figure out something. Just like rip the ISO from the computer.
We don't condone that at Game Development Club. Talk to me afterwards about that. I'd like the info. We don't do that.
No, it's fine. It's technically legal if you own the game. So.
What if I owned the game?
Please don't.
That is a friend's game.
That's not.
Do you have something? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if anyone here knows how to use Blender, and especially rigging, because I'm like trying to rig a model and it's trying to rig it.
We have a few people.
Some stuff about how to do that.
There is a guy who's really good at that. I was just posting Discord.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you post in creative on Discord, that guy specifically will probably reach out, but you might get other people to reach out. So.
I'll try to post it there.
Dope. Yeah, that's all I had. So go forth, make games, be awesome. Thanks, guys.